Greetings, mighty companions, and welcome back to Practical and Healing Applications of A Course in Miracles with me, Anna Rebecca Quinn. I will be your host for the next hour and a half as we read A Course in Miracles together, try to understand what it's saying, and try to apply these principles to our lives, to whatever is going on in our lives, because this is a course in miracles. It is a curriculum by which you can experience the healing, the relief of whatever kind of suffering or limitation you're going through. Is a course in miracles. The Course in Miracles says that a miracle is a right perception, and a right perception produces a release from fear, and it releases joy, and it brings peace and joy. So we're going to be talking about how to experience miracles of peace and joy and abundance as natural. That's what we're talking about today. Now, we're going to be in chapter 9. We're going to be in chapter 9, section 4. I'm going to list it right here. And we are going to be talking about errors, how to correct errors, your errors, their errors, what are errors, and how to correct them, which is the same as talking about healing. The Course in Miracles, thank you, right on. The Course in Miracles is a curriculum for teaching us how to correct our mistakes. Now, what mistakes are we making? The Course in Miracles says we're not making mistakes of behavior. We're making mistakes of perception. All mistakes are mistaken perception. You may have a behavior that is unloving or unprofitable, but that behavior is coming from a misperception. The level of error is the level of the mind. So if somebody's behaving insanely, the problem is not that they're behaving insanely, but they are responding to a wrong perception. That's what A Course in Miracles has to say. And so the Course in Miracles is saying, correcting behavior, correcting at the behavioral level is like correcting a suffering at the symptom level. And so the Course in Miracles talks about that the only level where you can correct insanity is at the thought level. That's the only level at which we're making errors. Okay? We're not making behavioral errors. Behavioral errors are just a symptom of our thought errors. So the Course in Miracles says that we're only suffering because we are thinking something that is not true. We are believing something that is not true. And so now our behavior is mirroring something that is not true. So insane behavior did not come just out of nowhere. Insane behavior always comes from misthought. That's what A Course in Miracles has to say about where is that mistaken behavior coming from. Now, this section is talking about how to correct misthought, misperceptions, okay? How to correct them, how to undo errors of thinking that we are making. And the Course in Miracles talks about the plan for the correction of our misthought, our misperceptions. And it calls this plan for the correction of our thought errors the atonement. That's what A Course in Miracles calls the atonement. The atonement is not what A Course in Miracles. The atonement is not what we learned about atonement, which is correction through punishment. Atonement is the correction of one's errors that they are making in their mind by believing something that's not true and then acting insanely as a result. So we're going to be talking about what are the errors that we're making? What is the source of our errors? And how do you allow your errors to be corrected for you? All right. So the Course in Miracles says that reality was really true, was really going on. Reality, as established by the author of reality, is only joyous. It's only loving. It's only abundant. So what's real and true is only loving, joyous, and abundant, and it lasts forever. And so, whatever you are experiencing that's not loving, it's not joyous, and it's not abundant, that is something that is not true. It's something that we're perceiving, but it's something that we have made up, and it is not true. So, the Course in Miracles defines an error, a misthought, a misperception as you believing something that's not true. Okay. Now, then the Course in Miracles talks about how everything we've learned in the past is not true. The belief system that we've all learned from the past is not the truth. Why? Because it's not loving, it's not joyous, and it's not abundant, and it's not eternal. Right. And so, and so, because we did not learn the true nature of reality, our reality or the reality of everything, because we didn't learn the true nature of ourselves as innocent, guiltless spirits that are eternal, now what we're thinking about ourselves and each other is wrong. It's not true. Now, to be mistaken, to be believing in something that's not true, doesn't mean you're evil. It doesn't mean you're bad. It just means you're wrong. You're totally innocent. You're just wrong in what you believed and learned that you are. And the Course in Miracles says we're going to get to the point where we're going to be thanking God that we were wrong about what we learned that we are, what we believed that we are. You know, if what you've learned from the past hasn't made you happy and abundant and joyous and free, then aren't you glad to learn that what you learned about yourself and the world is not the truth? So there's going to come a time where we go, oh, thank God that I am wrong about what I learned about myself. Thank you, God. Because what I learned about myself in the past has not made me happy. It has not satisfied me. Has not made me experience abundance as natural. And I'm glad that that's wrong. So, and so and so I just wanted to begin with that thing, that part of the course which defines reality. Yes, thank you, Naya. I know. Um, I've been trying to get it onto Facebook, but it won't go. But I'm gonna try right now. We'll see what happens, and we'll just see. Oh, maybe it is. Okay. Anyway, so thank you, Naya, for letting me know that, and and Naya, thank you, Greg, and it will be available on Facebook after this broadcast is over. Facebook won't let me live stream on Facebook from another platform. So, okay. So the point here being is that whatever is real and true, accurate, correct, is something that produces only love, joy, peace, and abundance and health. Okay. And so if you are not experiencing love, peace, joy, abundance, and health, it means you are making an error in your mind about reality, about yourself, about others, about the world. Okay. And so, okay, great. So I'm not happy. I'm not joyous. I'm not abundant. What does that mean? It means I'm wrong. I am mistaken. I'm making an error in my thoughts, in my thinking. And okay, great. Well, I want to be happy. So, what is the truth? What is accurate? What is correct according to the author of reality? The Course in Miracles has to break it to us all through the course, reminding us you are not the author of reality, and seeing what we have made. Thank God we're not the author of reality. You know, the reality is according to the author of reality. And the author of reality says you are only innocent, you are only free, you are only eternal, you are only loving and only lovable, and everything else is an error in your thinking that you learned from the past from people who did not know the truth about themselves. That's what A Course in Miracles has to say about what truth is, what reality is. And everything else is your mistaken perception, your false perception. And we've all learned falsely. We have all learned falsely about who we are and what reality is from people who did not know it because they were taught falsely about the truth about themselves. Okay. Now, so that's what the truth is. That's what reality is. That is what is accurate and correct. Okay. So now, okay, great. Well, then I'm not experiencing only peace, love, joy, and abundance and eternalness. Okay. That means I'm making an error in my perception. I'm not correct about what I'm thinking about myself and others because I don't like the way I feel. Now what? What do you do with those mistaken errors? Those errors, how do you get those perceptual errors corrected so that you can experience what is true and what is reality? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. And and you know, it has a lot to say about, what do you do not only when with your errors, but what do you do with other people's errors? So how do you know? We already talked about how you know when you're making an error in your thinking. You're not happy, joyous, free, abundant, okay, full of love. How do you know when somebody else is making an error? When somebody else is not perceiving correctly, okay, they're not aware of reality. How do you know that? Okay, well, you know that because if somebody is not experiencing peace, love, joy, and abundance, then you know that they are in error. They are making an error. Now, who they are is not wrong. It's just what they're thinking, what their interpretations, that's wrong. But this section is going to remind you that the way to facilitate the correction of your errors and theirs is to remember that just because they are wrong in their perception, like you, that doesn't mean they are wrong as a child of God. And when you make that distinction between the dreamer and their dream, the child of God and their error, now you are going to be a channel for correction for them. Okay. Naya says, I had an incident today at work, unsure of what to do with other people's error. So this class is quite fitting. I'm all ears. Right on, Naya. Beautiful. Yeah, I too, Naya, have been experiencing that today where there was, we had an experience today where there was someone here who was definitely in big time error. And we were in big time error because we were upset and we were offended. And so I had to laugh when I did the random number generator and this section, what to do with other people's errors came up. It was just hilarious. I told Greg about this section. And he was like, no, nobody would believe you that was random number generator. But it was because I asked Spirit to decide for me. I said to Spirit, what is it you would have me learn tonight by teaching it? And then this section about what to do with other people's errors and your own came up. So thank you for saying that, Naya. Okay, so this section is going to talk about what are their errors, why are those folks making those errors, what are my errors, and how to respond to those errors so that those errors can be corrected by love. Okay. So now, like I said, the Course in Miracles talks about the atonement, and the atonement is the plan for the correction of all of our errors that we didn't make, but that we have been given, we have received. A Course in Miracles is a plan that was given us by love, by something is way smarter and more loving than we are at the moment, for the correction of all of our errors. That's what A Course in Miracles is. So the first sentence here says, I'm going to, and wherever it says the word atonement, I'm going to use the plan for the correction of errors. Okay. So the atonement, A Course in Miracles, the plan for the correction of all errors is for everybody. So the plan for the correction of all of our errors is for everybody. Everybody deserves loving correction. Everybody, not just the people that you like right now, even the people who have offended you and hurt you. They deserve love's loving plan for the correction of their errors. They do, you do, everybody does. So that's the first thing that it wants us to know, that loving correction of all of our errors is for everyone. It's for everybody. There's nobody that doesn't deserve loving correction for their errors. And anybody who's unhappy or angry or hurt or sad or depressed or sick or broken or broke, they all deserve loving correction. There's nobody that doesn't deserve loving correction for their errors, even to people who have offended you. Okay. And you. Now, I love it. Naya says, how miraculous to be here together. Amen to that, Naya. Amen to that. Okay. So it says, the Course in Miracles, the correction plan for everyone's errors is for everybody, because the plan for the correction of everyone's errors is the way to undo the belief that anything is for you alone. There's no loving healing plan that's just for you. There's no loving healing plan that's just for them, right? The loving healing plan of all of our correction of all of our errors is for everybody. Okay. Jerry says that's a hard reach, but I could get there. Right on. Exactly. Now, then A Course in Miracles defines forgiveness in a very unusual way. A Course in Miracles says to forgive is to overlook errors. What does it mean to forgive? To overlook errors. Okay. Where I'm not focusing on the error, I'm not making the error real, I'm not associating them with their error, I'm overlooking their error. Why? In favor of remembering who they are as an innocent child of God who is one with me. Okay. Just because this person is making an error, like I do all the time, doesn't mean that they're not still exactly the same as me, an innocent child of God who deserves only loving correction when they are mistaken. That's what it means to forgive, is to overlook error. So, what does it mean to what does it mean to overlook error? Look then beyond error, which means don't let your perception rest on that error. To look beyond the error means you don't focus on the error and then associate them with the error and think they are the error, right? That's what forgiveness means. You overlook the error. You don't let your perception rest on the error. You don't associate that person with their error. They are not their errors. Are you your mistakes? Are you your past mistakes? Do you want to be your past mistakes? I don't want to be my past mistakes, right? But if you don't want to be your past mistakes, that means you're going to have to overlook other people's errors and not see them as their mistakes. Just because you've made mistakes, that doesn't mean that's who you are. You are not your errors. I make errors all day long, but that's not what I am. That's not who I am. That's not what God created me to be. God didn't create me to be an error, and God didn't create them to be an error. And so, just like you, they make errors, they make mistakes in their perception, but they are not their errors. And the Course in Miracles talks about separating the dreamer from their dream, which means here's somebody who's asleep and dreaming that they, making a mistake in their perception about themselves, but that's not who they are. That's their dream of who they learned they are. What you're seeing of their errors, that's what they learned that they are. They learned they're bad. They learned that they were wrong. They learned that they were guilty. They learned that they were unworthy. They learned they weren't good enough, just like you. but that don't mean that's who you are, and that doesn't mean that's who they are. And so to forgive somebody means to separate the dream from what they're dreaming, to separate a child of God from the error that they're making, so that you can do that for yourself. All right. Beautiful. Okay. That's what forgiveness means. It means to overlook error, which means to don't let your perception rest upon that error. And the reason you don't want your perception to rest and focus on their error is because you're going to believe what your perception holds. So don't let your focus rest on their error. Overlook their error, look beyond their error in remembrance of who they are, like you, because whatever you allow to be in your perception, you're going to believe. It's like, oh, because I'm seeing that, it must be true. I believe it. No, just because you're seeing it doesn't mean it's true. You're seeing it because that's what you want to see. So don't let your perception rest on their error, or you will believe that that error is real and true. You will think that that is who they are. You will associate them with that. And then you'll think you are your errors. And so you'll feel guilty about your errors. You'll feel ashamed by your errors. And you will unconsciously request punishment for your errors. But you don't want to do that. I don't want to unconsciously ask for correction when I'm in error. I just want to go, I'm in error because I don't like the way I feel. Hey, love, could you correct this misperception for me? Obviously, I'm wrong about myself and somebody else. Could you correct that for me? Thank you. Okay, that's the alternative to judging their errors, focusing on their errors, and associating them with their errors. Right? Okay. All right. And if you wouldn't mind liking, sharing, and subscribing, that would be so helpful. When you like, share, and subscribe, you are telling the algorithm this material is important, and it sends it out to more folks. So thank you. It's a very easy, cheap, free way to support this ministry and to strengthen these ideas as they go out into the world to bring healing, to bring peace, to bring correction for the mistaken perceptions of the world. So thank you for that. Now, can you guys hear me well enough? I've got my new little lapel mic, and so I'm curious how it sounds. Does it sound okay? Let me know. Let me know. All right. Okay. So to forgive is to overlook. What does it mean to overlook? It means to don't let your perception rest on their errors, because you're going to believe whatever your perception holds. Okay. So instead of focusing on their error and associating them with their error and thinking that's who they and what they are, which is going to make you think that about yourself, here's what you're supposed to do instead. Accept as true only what that person is, if you want to know what you are. So instead of focusing your perception on their error, associating them with that error, and then doing the same for yourself, and then unconsciously requesting punishment because you think you are an error, remember only, accept only what that child of God really is, so that you can do the same for yourself, so that you can remember who and what you are. Okay. So I love that. What's the alternative to focusing on the error and believing that's them? Remember and accept only what and who they really are, which is also who you really are. You're not your errors. You're not your past mistakes, are you? Do you want to be your past mistakes? Do you want other people to associate you with your past mistakes and think that's who and what you are? Do you want that? I don't want that. Okay, well, if you don't want other people to see you as your past mistakes, then you've got to remember that that person over there who's obviously making a mistake is also not their mistakes. They're just like you, an innocent, guiltless, loving, and lovable child of God who has forgotten who they are, who didn't learn that they were innocent. And that's why they're acting crazy. That's why their behavior is insane. Okay. All right. That's what forgiveness means. Overlook their error. Don't associate them with their error, and remember the truth about who they are, which is not of their error, so that you can remember that for yourself. Okay? This is how we allow their errors and our own errors to be corrected for us. All right. Very good. Hi, Jane. Lovely to see you, dear. Naya says, this is great energy, and this is great energy work, I believe. I don't want to be defined by my past mistakes either. So even a stranger is also just an innocent child of God. That's right, like you. You know, everyone you meet, no matter how crazy they may seem, they are just like you. They are an innocent child of God who learned wrongly about themselves. And that's why they act insane. They weren't born insane. They're not evil and insane by their nature. They learned wrongly about themselves just like you. But unless you stop associating them with their past mistakes, then you'll never stop associating yourself with your past mistakes, which means you'll never stop feeling ashamed and guilty and then unconsciously requesting punishment for your mistakes. You know, like it says, loving correction is for everybody. Everybody deserves loving correction. Nobody deserves punishment for their errors. The Course in Miracles says there is no sin, but there are errors, and everyone deserves only loving correction for their errors. Okay? And only when their errors meet with forgiveness, only then are those errors truly corrected, which means they're not acting out those errors anymore. But I love what you're saying, Naya. Thank you. Absolutely. I don't want to be defined by my past mistakes either, you know. So when I see somebody else acting insanely, let me remember that they're just mistaken. They're not crazy. They're not bad. They're not evil. They're just mistaken. They're just like me, an innocent child of God who learned wrongly, you know, about themselves. We all learned wrongly. We all learned, you're bad. You're wrong. There's something wrong with you. That's what we all learned. And so now we believe that that's the truth about ourselves. And so, well, if you believe you are bad, wrong, and guilty, you are going to act insanely. If you were taught from birth that you're guilty, that you're a sinner at birth, well, how do you think you're going to act? You're going to act insanely, right? But those errors that you made, they're just mistakes in your perception about yourself. That person's insane behavior is coming from their mistaken perceptions and beliefs about themselves. That's where their insane behavior is coming from. And to forgive them is to overlook their insane behavior, remembering that they're just like you. They're an innocent, guiltless child of God whom God loves and adores, like you, and they just don't know it. Okay. That's what it means to truly forgive somebody. And that's what that's what leads to the correction of our false learning. Hello, Diana. Lovely to see you. Okay, here we go. Here we go. You guys are doing great. So we heard how the first thing we've heard about errors is how to allow them to be corrected. In other words, don't you let your perception rest on their error. Accept only the truth about them as a child of God, just like you, who learn wrongly about themselves. And then it says, because if you perceive what they are not, which is guilty, crazy, insane, then you cannot know what you are as a guiltless child of God. And you can't know what you are because you're seeing that person falsely. So if you're seeing that person as their ego, as their mistakes, as their past, if you're seeing that person as their insane behavior, then you can't learn and understand what you are as a child of God. who is not their insane behavior. So then it says, so remember always that your identity is shared and that sharing is your identity's reality. So remember always that whatever you see as their reality, that's what you're going to think your reality is, because reality is shared. So if you think they are evil, they are bad because of their bad behavior, then that is exactly what you are going to think about yourself, because identity is shared. So remember that when you are tempted to judge their bad behavior, their insane behavior, and tempted to believe that that's who they are, right? Remember that when you're tempted to do that, or you're going to associate yourself with your errors and your past, and you are going to feel guilty, sinful, wrong, and unlovable. All right. Now, then that was paragraph number. That was only one paragraph. I love that. Naya says, I appreciate you saying that everyone deserves love and correction for their errors. Everybody does. Because truly, if everyone had learned better, they wouldn't be making those errors. They wouldn't be behaving insanely. An error is an insane, it's a false thinking that produces insane behavior. And truly, if they knew the truth about themselves, if they had learned they were an innocent child of God, that's not sinful and deserves only loving correction, then they would not be behaving insane. They wouldn't be wrong about themselves, and they wouldn't be behaving insanely. Okay? Exactly. Like DR says, it's all ignorance. It's not sin, it's ignorance, right? And, truly, that's right. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. That really is the essence of forgiveness. It's recognizing they don't know what they're doing because they don't know who they are, because they did not learn it. Excuse me. Okay. So that was paragraph 1. Thank you, Diana, for saying that. All right. Paragraph 2. You have a part to play in the correction plan for all the children of God. You do. You have a part to play in the correction plan of all mankind. Yes, you do. Okay. You have a part to play in the healing plan for all mankind, but this healing plan, the plan for the loving correction of everybody's errors, is beyond you. You have a part to play in the healing plan of everyone's errors, the loving plan, but the plan itself for the correction of everybody's errors, that's beyond you. Okay. It ain't coming from you. You know why? Because you don't know how to overlook errors. You know why you don't know how to overlook errors? Because you wouldn't make errors if you knew how to overlook errors. So the plan to correct those errors lovingly cannot be your plan. It can't be your plan. Like, I know how to correct their errors. I'm gonna fix that person's errors. How often does that work? I'm gonna fix you, honey. You ready? You're welcome. How often do people like, oh, thanks so much for fixing my error, right? You can't even fix your own errors, but yet we're trying to fix other people's errors. Thank you, Naya, for that super chat. And thank you, Diana, for that super chat. I really appreciate that very much. Thank you. Diana says, yeah, because I'm ignorant too. Exactly. If you knew how to overlook and correct errors, you wouldn't make errors. So the correction of their errors or your errors cannot be coming from you. You don't know how to correct errors. I know it's so obvious that I feel a little stupid saying it, but that's where we're at. Obviously we don't know how to correct our errors, or we wouldn't make those errors, right? But yet we act like, we know how to correct other people's errors. Well, let me tell you what you should do. Let me tell you what you're doing wrong. Oh, this is what you should be doing. Right? When obviously you can't even correct your own errors. So we're so quick to tell everybody else what to do to fix their problems. But when it comes to our problems, we have no idea how to correct those problems, or we wouldn't be making those errors. We wouldn't have those problems. It's kind of the obviousness that has been lost on us until the course goes, you don't know how to correct errors. The plan for the correction of errors can't be of you, because if you knew how to correct errors, you wouldn't even make them. Like, oh, duh. Thank you, Course. So you have a part to play in the plan for the loving correction of everybody's errors. You got a part to play, but the plan itself is not of you, because you don't know how to correct errors, or else you wouldn't make them. And it would merely be further error to think either that you do not make errors, or that you can correct errors without a guide to correction. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's another error. So one error, one error is that I know how to correct errors. So let me tell you what you should be doing to fix that. Okay. The next error that we're making is the thought that, well, I don't make errors. They're making errors, but I'm not making any errors. I'm doing it all right. I know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing. That's a further error. And then the other error that we're making is the idea that we can correct our errors without a guide to correction. Okay? And that the word guide is capitalized. It's guide, that's spirit. That's your higher self. So I don't know how to correct errors. And it's not true that I don't make errors. And I also cannot correct errors without a guide to correction. I cannot correct anything on my own, or else I wouldn't be making these errors. I wouldn't have this problem. Of Course in Miracles defines and describes all problems as errors. There's no problem that's not an error, because in reality, there are no errors. There's only peace, love, joy, and abundance. So if there's a problem, it's because you are making an error and you are suffering needlessly as a result of that error. That's how A Course in Miracles defines our problems. Every problem is coming from an error in my thinking, in my perception about myself and about others, right? There's no problem that is organic in the world. Like, oh, I got this problem that came from out there and is attacking me. No, no problems are accidents. There's no accidental problems. All problems come from mistaken perceptions that we are making about ourselves and others, because we learned wrongly. We learned falsely about ourselves. Naya says, this is similar to herbal medicine, I'm realizing. We can't fix your symptom, but we can treat you. It's all self-healing and our guide's correction. Exactly. Very good. Very good. Now you are a healer. You do have a part in the loving correction plan. It's the same as saying you have a healing part in the healing of humanity. It's the same thing. You have a part to play in the loving correction of errors, yours and theirs. You do. But the plan itself is not yours. You need a guide. You need a guide to how to correct errors according to our guide, our higher loving self, spirit. Now, he says, and if you don't follow this guide to correction, then your errors will not be corrected. So forget about their errors not being corrected. Your errors won't be corrected. The loving plan for the correction of all errors, yours and theirs, is not your plan. That's not your plan. Why? Because of your limited ideas about what you are. But this limitation about what you believe you are, that's where all errors arise. Okay. Says, I love that. It's really great. The plan for the loving correction of all errors is not your plan, because of your limited ideas about what you are. But this limitation relative to what you believe you are is where all errors arise. Wow. So it's not about correcting my insane behavior. Like, why do I have that habit? Oh my God, I got to fix that bad habit that I have. No, the correction of all errors is coming from your limitation. What does it say? Because of your limited ideas about what you are. My problem is I have limited ideas about what I am. That's where this problem is coming from. So instead of trying to fix the behavior, which is the symptom of the problem, you might want to focus on what is it I'm thinking about myself? What is it I'm believing about myself? What is it I'm feeling about myself right now? Let me do that. And then whatever I do in form to fix the problem will work because I'm working at the true causal level of the problem, which is coming from my limited beliefs about what I am. Okay. We all have limited beliefs about what I am. Like, for instance, I think I'm this body. And I think I only have the power and the strength and the resources that are of this body. That's for starters. Another one is I believe I'm guilty. I believe there's something wrong with me. That's a limited idea about myself. Another one is I think that I'm separate. I'm different from everybody else. And some days I think I'm better than others, and some days I feel like I'm worse than others. But my limited belief about myself is that I'm different from other people somehow. So, so this limited understanding, my limited ideas about what I am, this is where all of my errors are arising. This is where all of their errors are arising. If they knew the truth about themselves, they wouldn't be acting insanely. If I knew the truth about myself, I wouldn't be acting insanely. Okay. Now, the way to undo all of our errors that are coming from our limited ideas about what we are is therefore not of us, but it is for us. So the way to correct those errors is not of us, but the plan to correct our errors is for us. So it's not going to be my plan about how my error or their error is corrected, but it sure is there for me if I want to utilize it. That's beautiful. All right. Oh my God, DR, I should not have been reading your text while I took a sip of my drink. DR says, I'm eating nachos right now, and Spirit says, it's nacho plan. That's right. And you nacho body, you nacho errors. You are nacho errors. You are nacho past errors. Thank you, Diane. I'm so glad I didn't spit my drink when I read your text. that would have been an error. Okay. So the loving plan for the correction of errors, paragraph 3, is a lesson in sharing. It's a lesson which is given you because you have forgotten how to share. So the correction of errors is a lesson in sharing. So instead of judging that person as different from me, I'm going to actually share. I'm going to actually share with them. Share with them what? Share the reminder of what we both are, about the truth about both of us. I'm going to share awareness or remembrance of what we both are. Okay. Instead of focusing my perception on your errors, making your errors real to you, which means making my errors real to me, I'm going to share the remembrance of who we both are, which is not show past errors. Thank you, Diana. All right. Naya says, mistaken error is because I learned myself wrongly. Limited to the belief of who I am. Correction of love. It is important to have guidance for us. That's beautiful, Diana. That's so funny. I love it. You guys are great. You guys are awesome. Okay. So then it says, and so the loving spirit, your loving right mind spirit, merely the guide to correction, merely reminds you of what is your natural ability. What is your natural ability? Your natural ability is to share. So your guide that you need for the correction of errors, you're not going to correct your errors or their errors without a guide, remember? So that guide to the correction of errors is going to remind you of what is your natural ability. Okay. Which is, what is your natural ability? And then it says, well, by reinterpreting the ability to attack people's errors, which you did make, into the ability to share the truth about you both, then your guide for correction translates what you have made, the ability to attack people's errors, into the ability to remember the truth for both of you. It turns your errors into what God created. Okay. So we need a guide for the correction of errors. And our guide goes like this. Hey, you know that ability you have developed really well to attack people's errors, thinking that, oh, you don't make those errors? Well, that ability to attack their errors, I'm going to translate that ability to attack people's errors into the ability to share the truth for them about you both, that you are both innocent and mistaken. We're just alike. Just like me, they're mistaken about what they are. They have limited beliefs about what they are, and they're just like me, as innocent and guiltless and sinless as the moment they were created, just like me. That's what it means to share the truth with another person. And that's an ability that you have that's natural, that your higher self is now teaching you to use instead of the ability to attack people's errors, which is attacking yourself, that you have developed and learned. It's so beautiful. So instead of attacking people for their errors, I'm going to learn how to use that ability to share the truth with them, that the truth that we share. I'm going to remember the truth that we shared. I'm going to share that with them instead of attacking them for their errors. Okay. All right. Right on. Thank you, Naya. That's so awesome. Well, you guys have been making me feel so supported, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that super sticker, Naya. Okay. Now it says, okay, now I'm going to skip down to paragraph 4, just because we got a bunch of paragraphs. We're going to see where we're at. Okay. Now we're going to go to paragraph 4. Everybody take a breath. Okay. Now it says in paragraph 4, now your ego definitely has a plan for correction. Why? Because you are asking for one, but you're not asking for the correction of the right teacher. So everybody wants correction. Everybody wants healing. Everybody wants peace. Okay. But we tend not to ask the right teacher. Like, I want peace, I want love, I want joy, I want happiness, I want abundance, but I'm asking the ego. Like, ego, how can I have love? I'm gonna have abundance. So it's that everybody's asking for correction. Everybody wants it, but most people are asking the wrong teacher for it. Everybody wants love. There's nobody you're going to meet that doesn't want love, that doesn't want peace, that doesn't want their errors and their mistakes corrected. Everybody wants that. And it's for everybody, but most people are asking of it of the wrong teacher. Now, the ego's plan for correction, the ego's plan for peace and happiness, of course, makes no sense and will not work. So, any plan for peace and happiness and joy that you're asking of the wrong teacher, that is a plan for peace, joy, and happiness that will not work. Your errors will not be corrected. If you're asking the ego for the correction, for the peace, for the joy that you desire and that you deserve, then it's not going to work. Okay. So, when you're like, I got this problem and this is the way I'm going about getting it corrected or healed, and you don't get the peace, joy, and abundance, it can only be because you are asking the wrong teacher. You're asking the ego. Okay. So if you didn't get the peace and the joy and the abundance that you desire and that you deserve, it's not because it's not there. It's not because God's mad at you. It's not because you don't deserve it. It's because you are asking the wrong teacher. And when you ask the right teacher, your higher loving right mind, then it will work, right? But if it doesn't work, I've been doing this and I've been doing that and I tried this and I tried that and nothing worked. Or that can only be because you're asking the wrong teacher for the healing, for the correction. Okay. So it's not like there isn't an answer. There is. But if you're asking the wrong teacher, then whatever you hear, whatever answer you get, it's not going to work. All right. Now, by following the ego teacher, what is the ego teacher? That's the voice for guilt. That's the voice for attack. That's the voice for judgment. That's the voice where you're wrong and I'm going to fix you. And we're different because I don't make that mistake. I'm not mistaken, right? That's the wrong teacher, by the way. If you're asking for if you're following the wrong teacher, then all you're going to do is merely place yourself in an impossible situation, because that's what the ego always leads you to, an impossible situation, a situation that won't work to bring you the peace that you desire and that you deserve. Okay. So it says the ego's plan is this. Okay. You ready for the ego's plan for the correction? Okay. So you got your loving right mind's plan for the correction, which is don't let your perception rest on the person's errors, and then just remember who and what they are, which is the same as what you are. Okay. That's spirit's plan for the correction of errors. Okay. That's what we heard. Okay. Now we're going to hear the ego's plan for the correction of errors, which will never work. It always puts you in an impossible situation. It just won't work. Okay. Here's the ego's plan for the correction of our problems. Here it is. The ego's plan is for you to see the other person's error or your error very clearly first, and then try to overlook it. I'm going to focus on that error. I'm going to see that error. I'm going to make that error real, and then I'll overlook it. That's the ego's plan for correction. But how can you overlook the error that you have made real already? Okay. You know you've made an error real when you're looking at it, you're focusing on it, and you're upset about it, and you're judging it. Okay. That's the ego's plan. Now remember what spirit's plan is. The plan that does work to bring you peace, that does correct your errors. The plan is don't focus on the error and remember who they are, which is the same as who and what you are. Okay. The ego's plan, which won't work to correct that error, is to focus on that error first and make it real, see them as their error, and then try to overlook it because you're the more enlightened one of the two. It's like, oh my God, I cannot believe you did that. That is so terrible. I would never do that. But because I'm a Course in Miracles student, because I'm the better of the two, I will forgive your error. Okay. That is the ego's plan for the correction of error. Do you see the difference? Okay. So it says, how can you overlook what you've made real? By seeing their error clearly and making it real, seeing them as their error, then you cannot overlook their error. All right. Now, okay, great. And now I'm going to skip paragraph 5 to save time, and we're going to go to paragraph 6. All right. Yeah. I love it. I'll just do the last line of paragraph 5. Forgiveness that is learned of spirit does not use fear to undo fear. So if you're going to use fear or anger to correct what came from somebody's fear or anger, then that is not going to work. Like, oh, I'm going to take what came from your fear and anger, and I'm going to give you more fear and anger to stamp out what came from your fear and anger. That's not going to do any kind of correction. That is not correction. The spirit does not use fear to undo fear. Spirit does not use attack to undo what came from attack. That's not how correction works. You know, if the person's bad behavior came from their fear and their guilt, and then you give them more guilt, which is where their problem came from, then you just amplified their problem. That is not helpful. That did not correct their error. Their error came because they felt guilty. But now you're going to give them guilt thinking, I'm going to fix that error. No, 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 no. Love, true correction does not use fear or guilt or anger to correct the mistakes that came from fear, guilt, and anger. Oops, LOL. I love that. Diana says, I did better with this today than yesterday. Amen to that. Beautiful. I love it. Okay. Okay, that's great. I love it. Okay, so now we're in paragraph 6. It says, correction through love, loving correction, which is the only real correction, loving correction lies simply in looking beyond their error from the beginning, which means keeping their error unreal for you. Wow. What does that mean? That means don't let any belief in the realness of their error enter your mind at all, or you will believe that you've got to undo what you've made in the past in order to be forgiven or corrected. Okay. Wow. So, that's Spirit's plan for the loving correction of not only their errors, but yours too. Okay. So saying love's plan, the plan that does work to correct both of y'all's errors, is don't let any belief in the realness of their error, like that is real, that is who they are. Don't let the belief in the realness of their error enter your mind at all, or you're going to believe that your errors that you made are real and can't be corrected. To say that to make somebody's error real is to believe that they are that error and that it can't be corrected. That's what it means to make someone's error real. Okay. But don't let the belief in the realness of their error into your mind, or you'll believe that your errors can't be corrected, and you'll believe that your errors are who you are. Wow. Okay. Now, the truth is about their errors is that what has no effect does not exist. And to love the effects of their error and yours are totally non-existent. Isn't that deep? Wow, that's a very deep thought. That to love isn't like, oh my God, I can't believe that you made that error. That's really terrible. Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Love sees the effects of your errors as non-existent. Spirit's not upset about your errors. Spirit's not like, oh my God, you've done so much damage. Love is not concerned at all. Love is not worried about the effects of your error. Love knows that your error is just an error. It's not real. It's not the truth about you. And whatever is coming from that error is also not true and not real. That's what love knows. That's what correct perception knows. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? That just makes me want to hear the truth. That just makes me want to listen to the voice for love even more. When you are listening to the voice for love, you are hearing a voice that knows that your errors are totally meaningless. It's like whatever, it's just an error and it's not real, it's not true, and whatever is coming from that error isn't real or true either. So I'm not disturbed by that. That is how love perceives your errors. Isn't that beautiful? Now, why do we not listen to the voice for love more often? It's not focusing on our errors and offended by our errors and, seeing our errors as real and seeing us as our errors and giving us guilt and judging us for our errors. Not at all. But your ego is. And so if you're listening to your ego and following your ego, your errors will not be corrected. As a matter of fact, your errors will be magnified into sins, and judged, which means your ego will give you more guilt about that error, which will magnify the error. It will magnify the source of that error, which is fear and guilt. Okay, I love that. And so our higher self literally sees the effects of our errors as non-existent. Wow. Okay. That's the kind of perception I want to have about my errors, right? So that I don't feel guilty about my errors and then unconsciously request punishment for those errors. I want to see my errors the way love sees those errors, okay? As unreal, not who I am, just a mistake, and no real effects. That's the way I want to see my errors. But that means that's the way I got to see other people's errors, right? Okay. Light Upon Light says the mystic Joel Goldsmith refers to this as the nothingization of error. I love that. Or evil. God didn't create it, therefore it's nothing and has no power. Exactly. Thank you for saying that. You know, the God, spirit, love, it sees our errors as nothing, nothing at all, which means has no power. Has no power, right? I love what the Course in Miracles says about how that you're afraid of your errors, you're afraid of your ego, or you're afraid of what your ego has made because you believe that it has power to do something. But the truth is that only what comes from God has power to do anything. And so what hasn't come from love doesn't have any power to do anything. So imagine if you were like taking that error that you were feeling so guilty or so angry or so afraid about, and you went like, you know what, that doesn't come from God, and so it doesn't have any power to do anything. It's not doing anything. It's nothing. Imagine if you had that perception, which is correct perception of what your ego has made and what your ego has done and what your ego has thought. You know, take any problem that you have, and tell yourself, this problem is an error in my perception about myself or about another, and it has no power to do anything because it's not true. Okay, so I mean, try that, see what happens to that problem. All right. Beautiful. Thank you, Light Upon Light. That was really beautiful. I love Joel Goldsmith. Love Joel Goldsmith. So beautiful. So powerful. Okay. And so then your higher self, who sees your errors as completely non-existent, your higher self, by steadily and consistently canceling out all of your ego's effects everywhere and in all respects, your higher self is teaching you that your ego doesn't even exist, and it proves it. Wow, that is really powerful. Your guide to correction, your higher self, this is what it's doing. Okay, it's going to lay it out. This is what your higher self is doing. Okay, this is why we want to be following the voice for love instead of our ego. Okay, the voice for love that's in you, here's what it does: it steadily and consistently cancels out all the effects of your mistakes, your ego. And by doing that, canceling out all the effects of your mistakes, your higher self is teaching you that your ego doesn't exist and proves it. Woo! Your higher self is steadily and consistently canceling out all the effects of your ego. And this is how your higher self is teaching you that your ego doesn't exist, and it proves it. Wow. That's going to be our great revelation. Like, oh, the ego that I have been following that has enslaved me to fear and guilt and lack, it ain't even real. It's not even true. It doesn't even exist. Oh my God. I've been following something and enslaving myself to guilt and fear and lack, to something that does not even exist. Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, at least it doesn't exist, you know. So that's, like you said, Diana, phenomenal. Phenomenal. My ego The voice for fear and guilt, the one who's like, look at look at those errors that they're making. Oh my God, they're so real. Just like your problems are real, just like your errors are real, Anna. And they're guilty about their errors. They are their errors, just like you, Anna. You are your errors, and you are evil because of your errors. That's your ego. And that voice, that ego, which is just a belief. What is the ego? It's just a belief about yourself that is wrong, that you learned, that was never true. That is all the ego is. It's not a devil outside of you that has all this power. The devil, the ego, is just a mistaken perception in what you believe you are. It's just a limitation of what you believe you are. It's just, what was the word he used? I really liked it. It's just, oh yes, the ego, the devil, is just your limited ideas about what you are. I love that. And it's not, doesn't even exist. And for sure, if it don't exist, it doesn't have any power. All power is of God. All power is of love. What is not of God, what is not of love, it has no power to do anything. Whether it's them making that mistake or you making that mistake. Mistakes don't have power. No mistakes. I don't care if that mistake is murder or that mistake is, not balancing your checkbook properly. No mistake has power. No mistake is real. No mistake is the reality of anybody, not you, not them. And no mistake has power. No mistake you've made has power. And your higher self is steadily and consistently trying to cancel out all the effects of your mistaken limited beliefs about what you are, to the point where you realize that your ego is just doesn't even exist. It's not real. That's what A Course in Miracles is bringing us to. That is what the guide to correction is doing. It's steadily and consistently canceling out all the effects of our errors, and eventually teaching us that the ego is not real. It's not, it doesn't exist. Just phenomenal. Like you said, Diana, phenomenal. Okay. So forgiveness, which means healing through spirit, your loving right mind, the right voice, lies simply in looking beyond people's errors from the beginning, and thus keeping their errors unreal for you. So that's how the real correction of errors happens. What's the correction of errors? Another word for forgiveness. Forgiveness happens through us, through it. Forgiveness happens through spirit. Remember, the plan of correction comes through spirit. The plan of the correction of our errors comes through spirit, in our looking beyond errors from the beginning and keeping their errors, which is our errors, unreal for us. Okay, great. That's the plan for the correction of errors. Looking beyond the error from the beginning, thus keeping it unreal for you. Okay, great. How do I do that? Okay, how do I do that? Okay, here's how you do it. Don't let any belief in the realness of their error or your error enter your mind at all. Or you'll believe that you got to undo the errors that you made that are real in order for your errors to be corrected. The truth is that, I'm sorry, I went back. Okay. All right. I went back. So now we're in paragraph 7. Just get so excited by the truth. I just start reading from anywhere. Paragraph 7. So here's the instruction. Follow love's teaching in the correction of error, which is forgiveness. Why? Because correcting error is love's function. Follow love's teaching in the correcting of error, because correcting of error, forgiveness, is love's function, not yours. Remember, you can't correct those errors, or else you wouldn't make those errors. And remember that love, your higher loving mind, spirit, knows how to fulfill its function of correcting errors, and it knows how to fulfill it perfectly. So Spirit knows how to correct errors, and Spirit knows how to correct errors perfectly. So leave the correcting of errors to love, to Spirit, to your higher loving right mind. Okay. And this is what we meant when we once said that miracles are natural. And when miracles don't occur, something has gone wrong. Miracles are merely the sign of your willingness to follow love's plan for the correction of all errors, in the recognition that you don't know what love's plan for the correction of errors is. That's what the miracles are, a sign of your willingness to follow love's plan for the correction of errors, in recognition that you can't correct errors yet because you are still making them. Love's work is not your function. Love's correcting work is not your function. Unless you accept this, you cannot learn what your function is. Beautiful. Okay. So it's like it's reminding us over and over and over. Remember, love knows how to correct all errors lovingly, such that there's no remaining effects of that error. You don't. That's love's function. Okay. But you have a function in the correction of errors. It's just not what love's function is. And if you're trying to take love's job, you're trying to do love's job for love in the correction of errors, then you are not going to learn what your job is. Okay. Okay, beautiful. All right. Okay, let's see. Uh-huh. Okay. Let me see how many paragraphs we got here. We got 13. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, the confusion of functions, like what's your job and what's love's job, the confusion of functions is so typical of the ego that you should be quite familiar with that confusion of functions now. And the ego believes that all functions belong to the ego, even though the ego has no idea of what all functions are. And this is more than mere confusion. The ego having no idea what all functions are, and the ego thinking that all functions belong to the ego. This is more than mere confusion. The ego believing that all functions belong to it is a particularly dangerous combination of grandiosity and confusion that makes the ego likely to attack anyone and anything for no reason at all. And this is exactly what the ego does. It attacks anyone and anything for no reason at all. And this is why the ego is totally unpredictable in its responses. You know why? Because the ego has no idea what the ego heard. It's such a great description of the ego. The ego believes that all functions belong to it. Whatever there is to do, I'll do it. To judge, I'll do it. Correct errors, I'll do it. The ego thinks that all functions belong to the ego, because the ego believes that it is God. And that is why the ego is a particularly, what does it say? Particularly dangerous combination of grandiosity and confusion. And in later points, it says ignorance. So the ego is grandiose. The ego is a particularly dangerous combination of grandiosity and confusion that makes the ego particularly dangerous, in that it makes the ego likely to attack anyone and anything for no reason at all. As a matter of fact, this is exactly what the ego does. It attacks anyone and everything and anything for no reason at all, because the ego believes that all functions belong to it. The ego believes that it is God. All right. Now, and this is why the ego is totally unpredictable in its responses, because the ego has no idea what is really going on, but it does think that all functions belong to it. Now, if one has no idea of what is happening, like the ego, then how appropriately can you expect that one to react? The ego has no idea what's going on, but it thinks that it is God and it has the correct perception of everything. And so that's why the ego is totally unpredictable in its responses. And that's why the ego will attack anyone and anything for no reason at all. Okay. So don't be surprised when the ego, whether it's your ego or their ego, just attacks anyone or anything or you for no reason at all. That's what the ego does. Don't be expecting the ego's attack to be reasonable, to make sense, to be predictable. The ego has no reason. The ego is totally unpredictable. The ego has no idea what's going on. The ego has no idea what anything means, but it thinks it does. And it thinks its job is to judge and correct everyone, right? And so that's just the way the ego is. So don't be surprised when the ego attacks anyone or anything for no reason at all. Don't be surprised when the ego in somebody, including yourself, is totally unpredictable in its responses because they don't know what's going on. The ego is ignorant and arrogant, right? And so don't be surprised when the ego, who's ignorant and arrogant and thinks it's God, just attacks anyone and anything for no reason at all. Okay? Don't be like, oh my God. Just, the appropriate response, the corrective and loving response is that person is identifying with their ego. They don't know who they are. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what anything means. And so they're acting ignorant and arrogant. And that's not who they are. That's not who they are. Just like when my ignorant and arrogant ego is attacking anyone and anything unpredictably, that's not who I am. Okay. That is how love responds to that. Okay. So when you see that, you go, oh, yeah, that's how the ego is. That's not who they are. That's not who I am, but that's the ego I'm seeing. Oh, yeah, that's just like the ego. It's completely ignorant. It's completely arrogant. And it's going to attack anybody and anything for no reason at all. And it's going to be completely unpredictable in its responses. That's the ego. It's not them. And it's not me. And so I don't need to worry about it because it's coming from the ego, which means it has no power to do anything, which means I don't need to, which means it's not real. And so I don't need to invest my energy in judging that because otherwise I'm going to be judging myself. I'm going to be judging my own ego and making my own ego real. And I'm going to be feeling guilty about my own ego. And then I'm going to be unconsciously requesting punishment from the universe because I feel guilty about my own ego. When that's not really who I am. It's just a mistake in my self-perception. So we're learning how to look at the errors of the ego, see it correctly, and remember and share the truth with them about who they are and who I am, okay? We're hearing about how love corrects errors. Remember, the plan for the correction of their errors and my errors, that's not my plan. That's not my plan, but this is love's plan right here. Okay. And we have a part to play in love's plan for the healing and the correction of all errors. We do have a part to play. Okay. And it's remembering, oh, that's just the ego, but that's not them. That's our part. Okay. Love's part is to remind us both of the truth. Now, it says, now, if the ego has no idea what is happening, then how appropriately can you expect the ego to react? But you might still ask yourself, regardless of how you can account for the reactions, where the reactions of others sorry about that. You need to ask yourself whether the reactions of the ego places the ego in a sound position as a guide for your reactions. Okay. The ego doesn't know what's going on. It doesn't know what it is. And so it attacks anyone and anything for no reason at all. But you need to ask yourself if that places your ego in a very sound position to be your guide. Do you want something that is totally ignorant, totally confused, totally arrogant, with no idea what's going on? So it's going to attack anyone and anything anytime for no reason. Do you really want the ego to be your guide? Do you think that the ego's crazy reactiveness, insane reactiveness, inappropriate reactiveness places the ego in a sound position to be your guide? Do you want that kind of guide? Now, if you turn to your ego as your guide for what to do in a situation, then you are listening and following a guide who is ignorant, arrogant, confused, and is likely to, and has no idea what's going on, and is likely to attack anyone and anything for no reason at all. So we need to know that's how the ego is as a guide. When you turn to fear and guilt and judgment as your guide of what to do in any situation, that's what kind of guide you're following. So good to know, because do you really want to have a guide like that? Do you want to follow a guide like that? I don't. Yes. And it says, it seems absurd to have to emphasize repeatedly that the ego's qualifications as a guide are singularly unfortunate, and that the ego is a remarkably poor choice as a teacher of happiness. Yet this question, do I really want the ego to be my guide? Is the ego really a sound guide? This question, ridiculous as it seems, is really the crucial issue in the whole separation fantasy. Because anyone who elects a totally insane guide must be totally insane themselves. And it's not true that you don't know that the ego is an insane guide. You do, because you're judging the ego by the same qualifications that I am, says the voice of the Course. The ego, let me tell you something about the ego. The ego, that totally insane guide, is always telling you what to do, but it has no idea of what's really happening. And it is arrogant and ignorant and confused and totally likely to attack anyone and anything at any time for no reason. Let me tell you something about this guide that we have been following, unfortunately. This ego guide is it literally lives on borrowed time. And the ego's days are numbered. Isn't that good news? So don't fear love's judgment, but welcome it and don't wait for it, because the ego's time is borrowed from your eternity. All right. Paragraph 12. Be glad then that you have been wrong about yourself. Be glad that you have been wrong about yourself and others. But you were only wrong about yourself and others because you did not know who you were. And had you known who you were as an innocent child of God who cannot sin, then you could no more have been wrong than God can be wrong. Fairy tales, which is what we've learned about ourselves, they can be pleasant or fearful, pretty or ugly, but no one calls them true. Children may believe these fairy tales they learned for a while, and so those fairy tales are real for them. But when reality dawns, the fairy tales are gone. Reality has not gone in the meanwhile. The second coming is just the awareness of reality, not reality's return. The second coming is just the awareness of reality. The second coming is not the return of reality, it's just the awareness of reality. So, children of God, behold, reality is here, and reality belongs to you and me and God, and reality is perfectly satisfying to all of us. Only this awareness that reality is here and it belongs to all of us, and it's perfectly satisfying to all of us. Only this awareness can heal and correct all of our errors, because only this awareness is the awareness of truth. Okay, so the only thing that truly can correct all errors is the awareness of reality, of the awareness of what is real and what is true for all of us. That's the only correction. And that awareness of reality that is here now is not coming. You need to wait for the second coming. It's like, oh, I'm waiting for the return of reality. No, reality never left. And the awareness of the reality that is here, that never left, that we all share, that is only loving, the awareness of the reality of who we all are, the identity, the reality that we all share, which is that we're all the guiltless children of God. This is reality. And the awareness of reality, that's the only thing that heals. That's the only thing that corrects our egos. Our egos who are insane. Our egos who are so insane, who so don't know what's going on, that they are likely to attack anyone and anything at any time. Okay. So, hi, Jean. Lovely to see you, my dear. And I let's chat. Let's chat. Thank you for the reminder. So we are in chapter 9, section 4, and in the original edition, it's called The Correction of Errors. I think that's the title. But the point being here is that what's reality, what's true about them, about you, regardless of their ego's insanity, regardless of their ego's attacks, regardless of their ego's errors, regardless of your errors, what's reality for everyone is that we are all equally innocent and sinless and guiltless forever. And reality is something that belongs to all of us and God. Okay. That is the only thing that truly heals us and corrects all of our errors. Okay. Attacking errors, making their errors real, which makes our errors real, which makes us feel guilty about our errors, which makes us unconsciously request punishment for those errors. That is not how correction occurs. Correction is the awareness of the reality that we share with them, which is that they are the guiltless children of God, just like us forever, and there is no sin. That's the only thing that corrects errors, not making the error real and then judging and condemning that error. That is not how correction is made. That's not how love corrects. And we're hearing how correction is truly made for all of the errors we are making from our egos. The ego is an error making machine. That's what the ego is. And there is a way to correct all those errors. And the way to correct all those errors is for the correction of the belief that the ego is. The ego is just a mistaken belief that we learned in the past about what we are, that is not who and what we are. All right. Well, that's wonderful. Well, we finished this section. I skipped over a couple paragraphs here and there so that we could get to the good part about the truth about reality. I love what it says, "Behold, my child, reality is here. It belongs to you and me and God, and it is perfectly satisfying to all of us." Right? There's the reality of who and what we are, and then there is the fantasy about what we learned about who and what we are. And the fantasy about what we learned about who and what we are, that's our errors. That's where all of our errors, that's our error in our mind that's producing all of our errors, all of our insane behavior. And the only thing that can correct that is the awareness of our reality that we share with each other and with God. And this reality that we share with each other and with God, the nature of it is wholly satisfying to all of us. That's how you know reality is wholly satisfying. So if you're experiencing something where you're not feeling wholly satisfied, then you're not experiencing the reality of them or you. You know, only what's not the reality of us is not satisfying. So if you're not feeling satisfied, it's because you're focusing on what's not true. Okay. And when you realize and welcome and remember and have the awareness of what is reality, what is true for all of us, you will have the experience of feeling wholly satisfied. All right. Beautiful. Okay. Naya says, I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing the book you teach out of so that way I can keep an eye out for it. Okay. So Naya, this is one version of the original edition. There are several versions of the original edition, the original dictation. This is this purple covered book. It's called A Course in Miracles, the complete and annotated edition. This is the one that Greg and I teach out of the most. But then there's also the blue covered edition that looks like this. That is the blue covered edition, and you can get either one, Naya. So if you want to get the book, just go to Amazon and go to Course in Miracles, and you can either get the blue covered edition or the purple covered edition. There's also a black an edition of the original edition that has a black background and a white string of pearls. So you can get that one, Naya. And Naya, if you go to Amazon to get a Course in Miracles book, look for the used ones. Course in Miracles is the most available used book in the whole world, and you can see why. So when you go to look for a Course in Miracles, you look for a used one. You can get an absolute spanking brand new one for used price, because people take one look at this book. They take one look at it and they go, oh, hell no. And they give it back. So, and thank you, Naya. You're the best too, sweetie. All right, guys. So we finished that section, and I'm just going to do a couple of announcements, and then we'll go on, send you back out to the forgiveness lab called The World. Beautiful. Yeah. So I love Shining Lotus. Okay. Shining Lotus has a big used book section, and they always have course books in there. So it's a great place to start, Naya. All right. And then Diana says, I got both my copies used. Well, exactly. There's no need to buy a new Course in Miracles book. Like I said, there's no more available used book than A Course in Miracles. So now, guys, let me tell you, I want to tell you announcement wise, a few things. Dr. Carla and I are doing our next Course in Miracles play shop. It was going to be next weekend, but we've moved it to the first Saturday in November. I think that's November 1st. And it's going to be on holy versus special relationships. We're going to be talking about relationships from a Course in Miracles perspective. How to transform your special, ego, fearful, guilty relationships and transform them into holy relationships, which means wholly happy, wholly joyous, wholly abundant. And it's going to be an in-person workshop, play shop at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. Come join us. We're going to go do a deep dive on relationships from a Course in Miracles perspective. And it's going to be awesome and practical. Also, I have a new website, and if you would like to learn about my class schedule or schedule a Course in Miracles session with me, or if you would like to see my current writings that I've been writing, you can access my blog. And if you become a member of my website, which you can do for free, then you will have access to my personal private Zoom sessions with my members. You don't have to pay to be a member, But if you want to support my ministry, that's a great way to do it. Go to my website and become a member, and see what all I'm providing for my members there. And Course in Miracles recordings, access to my Course in Miracles playlist, my classes, all kinds of good stuff. And beautiful. And if you would like to support this ministry financially, you can either do a super chat or you can go to my website and make a donation. And thank you for doing that. And thank you guys for doing super chats in this class. I so totally appreciate it, more than you can even guess, truly. And also, if you are somebody who likes to watch my classes live on Facebook, I have a new Facebook professional page that when I have 100 followers on that new professional page, which is right here on the screen, then I can live stream. So right now, Facebook won't let me live stream from StreamYard, my streaming platform, until I am streaming from my professional page. So if you like to watch it live on Facebook and you haven't already, go to my new Facebook page right here on the screen and follow it. And so once I have 100 followers there, then you can watch me live stream each class. Okay. Also, I want to let you guys know, if you don't know already, that Greg and I, we teach our Transforming Relationships Through A Course in Miracles class, and we've been teaching it now for like 5 years or so, maybe more. Well, we just took that class live and in person. So now we've moved the time from Tuesdays at 7 to Sunday nights at 5:30 p.m. in person at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center and online here. So you can watch that class online here on my YouTube channel and eventually on my new Facebook page live, or in person. If you're in Denver and you would like to come join in our class and hear what A Course in Miracles has to say about transforming all your relationships into miracles, then join us on the live stream, or join us in person at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. We would love to have you. We're having a great time. Wow. Thank you, Naya. Awesome. Thank you, Naya, for those super chats, those super stickers. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. So if you're in the Denver area and you want to come have some fun applying the Course in Miracles to all your relationships and getting miracles in your relationships, Greg and I love teaching Course in person. It's really fun. We're very playful. We like to act out the scenes. We like to laugh at the ego, and we use our own relationship as examples for how to practice these ideas in your relationship. We give practical examples. We use our relationship. We try to act things out when we can. So we're trying to have a lot of fun with it. The relationship stuff in A Course in Miracles can be kind of heavy sometimes. Just last Sunday, right in the middle of class, some new student just got up and walked out. It can be intense, so we try to have fun. We try to laugh and play and encourage group discussion and all that. So that's every Sunday, 5:30 at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. And then I teach at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center every other Sunday at 11 a.m. at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center, in person and online. So if you want to come see a class and participate in a class at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center that I'm teaching, but you're not sure which Sundays that I'm teaching, then go to the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center website. So RockyMountainMiracleCenter.org, and you can see the teaching schedule. So if you want to come and see me on a Sunday, check the schedule on the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center website, and you can see when I'm teaching. It's every other Sunday. Usually it's like the second and the fourth Sunday typically, but check it out on the website and come join us. We're building a beautiful, awesome, miraculous, beautiful Course in Miracles community there at the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. So if you are looking for a loving, healing community that you can join with and heal with and learn these powerful principles with, have some fun with. Come to the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center every Sunday at 11 a.m. All right. I appreciate you all more than I can say. You guys are such a blessing in my life. You're blessing me more than I can say right now. And I'm so, so grateful for you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your financial support through the super chats or the super stickers. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for supporting my ministry. Thank you for supporting the strength of these ideas going out into the world. The world needs these ideas so much. The world needs you. The world needs us. The world needs these ideas. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time I see you.